the first questions the mothers wanted to get an answer from you. Women's body, the wisdom of the women's body. How many pregnancies is meant to hostile, and how many babies women's body in a healthy way is meant to birth and deliver into this world? What do you think? Is there like a limit number where a woman should say to herself, okay, that's enough for me, that's not healthy anymore, that's not safe anymore?
This is a good question. Because I've been working in the Philippines, which is my motherland. My mother's from the Philippines. And I work in a place where there's no birth control, there's no family planning. They're working under the government, but it's still very difficult. And as a result, many of our mothers, they're having 9, 10, 11 babies. 7 babies is still not considered too many. And the women are afraid. They don't always want so many babies. Some do. But some feel like they're in danger, and they are, because they're malnourished, they're very poor, they don't have good food, and some of them have a big problem trying to get decent nutrition. So, and also, how will they feed all their children? I mean, maybe their husband is a fisherman, but he doesn't own the boat. Someone else owns the boat. So he goes fishing every day, but he can only keep a few fish, and the rest goes to the boss. Or maybe he climbs coconut trees for a living. It's a dangerous job, but also when you climb coconut trees for your living, you cannot feed so many children. I mean, you have coconut, but you need money for other food. So it's a very difficult question, because we're living longer now as human beings, so our potential for having babies is more. My grandmother in the Philippines, when she had my mother was her 9th child, and she still had one more, my aunt. And they were very poor. But my grandfather was able to gamble and get money from that. So it wasn't just from farming. It was also from gambling, because he was very good at mathematics, so he was probably cheating. And my grandmother was really healthy. She was a strong, tiny little woman. And my mother, she was 44 years old when my mother was born. And she was 46 when my last aunt was born. You know?
Amazing.
Yeah, she was crazy. She was a midwife. Yeah. But not all women are that healthy. Because as a midwife, her mother taught her, and her grandmother taught her, how to find the herbs and how to find the vegetables. That lots of people don't eat those vegetables because there's something growing wild. But when you eat wild food, you can be stronger. For me, I had 5 times children. And then when I married Will, he had 2 already. So we had 7 children. And then I was given another child from Sumba. So we have 8 children. But I'm really happy that my body only had to have 5 pregnancies. And I love being pregnant. I love giving birth. I had really nice births.
Did you feel like it was getting heavier and would take more of a toll on your body after having each child?
My children were spaced 4 years apart, except for the 3rd and the 4th, were 2.5 years, like that. When I had Hanuman, I was 36 years old. And he was the 7th child, we had a lot of children, and I felt it would be nice if we don't have more children, because I felt older, you know? I mean, when I look back, I was actually really young at 36, and I was healthy, and I was really blessed, because like Will was making me beet juice, carrot juice, green juices every day. I had no doctor. My prenatal care was my husband bought a juicer, and he made me vegetable and fruit juices every day, and he took care of me. And also the Balinese people fed me sweet potatoes. Sweet potato is medicine for the uterus. They would take it from their fire. They have their little kitchen fire, and they would grab it from the fire, and in the morning give me a warm sweet potato straight from the fire. So it's from the earth. It's a medicine, this sweet potato, grown without any chemicals, and also cooked in real fire. So it has the medicine of the fire. That's why today we're going to eat pizza made with real fire. Because there's a medicine in each element: earth, air, water, fire. So, and they would bring it from the fire, grown from the earth, and then they blow it and then they give it to me. So they put the air medicine, and then I drink water. I got the water medicine, and the spirit medicine from the love of the women in this village. But still, at 36, I thought, I'm happy if I don't have more. And then at 50, we were given a new little baby she was only 8 months old, to adopt. And that was a very special treat and a lot of work. And at 50, having a new baby.
Right.
So I support mothers, however many babies they're having, because sometimes they have a choice and sometimes they don't. But they need our support and our love as birth keepers. Those of us that are doulas and midwives and birth keepers, we need to support the mother when she presents in pregnancy, to not to criticize her, oh, you're too old. You know, I heard this thing a doctor said to my friend. He said, oh, you're already 35. This is geriatric pregnancy. And her heart broke. And he said, you maybe are going to have a baby that's going to be imperfect, and you don't love a child if you bring a child in so old. But, I mean, how old was Uli when she had her twins?
Over 40.
40?
Yeah.
Yeah.
40 over.
And she had a beautiful, healthy twins. So I think what babies need is, what mothers need is to be supported and loved, because if you want to, as a birth keeper, love the baby and care for the baby, you have to support the mother first.
Well, there is a very organically another questions coming up. Women are asking why nowadays there are a lot of like medical management around the birth, and why it seems like nowadays it's harder for the women to give a birth naturally, spontaneously, than it used to be before. Is it really that it gotten harder, like biology and physiology wise, or just we are sunk into that medical model of care for the woman, where the management and the what you call that word in English?
Technology.
Not even technology.
The fascist model of childbirth?
Yeah, like what I'm trying to ask, is it truthfully harder to have a baby naturally today, or we just fall into that rabbit hole and we put ourselves in a situation where we all think that not that it's impossible, but it's really difficult to have a baby spontaneously and naturally, and that's why we should be grateful and happy that cesareans are ready to be given. The forceps are there for a reason, and all this stuff.
Yeah, it's as if I've been talking a lot lately about something I call awakening birth, because childbirth has become a nightmare. So we need to wake up from the nightmare. For example, yesterday I was with a girl 16 years old. She's so natural, she has had so little influence on her body, and her mind is still pure, and she was raised with so much love. Don't worry about the children. Can I see the frog? Oh, so beautiful. You want to come here?
Alive?
Yeah. Is that Jojo?
I found it over there.
Okay.
Go please.
Nava,
Can
can you put her back in the garden so she doesn't get sick and die? She likes to see you and meet you, but she wants to go back in the garden with her family, near where you found her. So that's what happens. All the noise from the children is when you do a more free kind of birth, because those children, they didn't have their cords cut immediately. They were born from love. They were born magically, naturally, and breastfed, and they're not expected to be quiet. They're expected to be really joyful, and I'm happy they're making sound. I hope you can hear what we have to say, but more important, we should be listening to their happy sounds.
Right.
So we never stop the children. Very, very well sometimes, but not really. So how do we wake up from this nightmare, where technology is taken over and childbirth is no longer a joyful event for the family, where it's expensive and you have to go to the hospital, and then when you go in the hospital, I will tell honestly to the mothers, in Russia in America, in Indonesia, in the Philippines, in Haiti, in Nepal, where I recently worked, when you go to the hospital, you can take your human rights and throw them away, because when you walk in the door of the hospital, your human rights are finished. So just know that you might as well, when you pack your bag and you get in a vehicle and you go in the hospital door, just know you're throwing your human rights out the door. So without your human rights, how can you have a natural, beautiful birth? Like this 16-year-old girl who gave birth yesterday. I've known her since she was a little girl. Of course, for her mother, it was really a big shock that her 16-year-old daughter found a lover, and she also doesn't hear. She's born without hearing. So with her special needs, everyone was afraid she would have a difficult time. And her young husband, who's also 17, his family took her to the doctor and said, you need cesarean. Right away, first visit, you need cesarean.
For what reason?
I don't know, that's prenatal scare. That's not prenatal care. I don't know if you can translate that, but
yes.
Prenatal scare. Different from prenatal care. And so the mother brought her to Bumi Sehat, because also she's my friend, so it was a blessing. And we supported her the whole time through pregnancy, through the labor, through her beautiful birth. And she didn't lay down on her back and put her feet up like this in horrible stirrups with the high table. You know the high table, the OB table, that's the torture table. It's for the convenience of the doctor. Don't lay down there. Don't. She squatted on the floor and she held a sarong. And she was so glorious. And she was smiling and pushing her baby out.
And she will be a great mother.
She's already a great mother. Immediately breastfeeding her tiny little baby girl. And you know what? She would have been terribly abused in the hospital. 100% sure cesarean. For a 16-year-old girl in this culture, absolutely. She also cannot hear, so she cannot speak clearly. So in the hospital, when she would go to the doctor's not speaking to her. She can read our lips. So I just told the midwives, if you speak to her so she can see your lips, she'll understand you. But nobody was respecting her in the doctor, so they stopped going to the doctor.
So do you think physically, did something change with our bodies, or we're still full of power to have babies? But it's just the idea in the air that
so I think
we
that
need to
our
be
food
managed.
our food has changed. So we have so much GMO food. We have difficulty with food. But I would say that really there have been slight changes, but the female body is amazing. And we are made to have children. Mm-hmm. This is our birthright. This is our heritage. It's our miracle. That's why we're born and live. I mean, you can say that, well, what about the woman's career? I mean, I have a fabulous career as a midwife. I had all my children and I put them number one. And it worked. You did it also. You're doing it. You make your family number one, and then everything else will follow, because family is a miracle. Right. But also, a lot of times women sit in front of a computer, and then they come home and they sit in front of television. If you're going for walks, if you're swimming when you can, if you're making love, these are all beautiful kinds of exercise. If you're eating food that you love, eat what your grandma would feed you. Mm-hmm. Okay? That's the best nutritional advice. Eat your grandmother's food, you know? And that's why our grandmothers seem to have an easier time. But remember, they didn't have all this epidural anesthesia. Right. There was a much lower cesarean rate. You know, for Bumi Sehat, I still feel the cesarean transport is high. Because sometimes the young mothers get transported in labor because their families say, we don't want to wait anymore. Okay? But still, even with that, it's only 2.4%. Mm-hmm. So that's very low. That's about the lowest in the world. I still would want to get it lower. I want to get it lower because I believe in women and they can give birth. So this generation of women can give birth. I saw a teenager give birth beautifully yesterday, you know? I was there to support her and rub her back, and when her baby was born, all I did was hold her baby gently so she could take her baby. She could breastfeed.
That was another question about the cesarean section. What are the definite reasons and indication for the C-section that you acknowledge?
Okay, so you know that over 30% of women on Earth now today are going to have cesarean. Out of every 1 out of 3 mothers is going to have, if 3 mothers are giving birth, 1 will have cesarean somewhere, you know, and 830 mothers today will die in childbirth. Some of them from complications of cesarean. Some of them, because they're poor, they live far away from a midwife. Many of them.
Definite indications for the cesarean.
Okay, so placenta previa, not low-lying placenta.
Right. So what is because that was the big topic today. I've been reading online as well on the Facebook group page.
Baby.
What is the low-lying placenta?
Okay, baby in the womb. If the placenta is here, low-lying, sometimes the doctor will say, oh, the placenta is low-lying, but look, the head can go out the cervix. This is the cervix. But the doctor says, oh, you need a cesarean. You know?
So what is it in
But if the
centimeters
placenta
from
is here and the baby can't go out, this is an indication, you know?
Right.
Low amniotic fluid. Sometimes the babies cannot even move because there's so little amniotic fluid. But the doctor does ultrasound and he doesn't say, mother, you need to drink more water, you need to, young coconut, you know, juices, you need to drink more. No, the doctor says, you need cesarean, you know?
Right.
If the baby is really like this, transverse, how can the baby be born with the shoulder coming first? But this is rare. I just saw one. The mother had no water. She was going to Siloam, the most expensive hospital in Bali, the most expensive doctor. She's Indonesian, Chinese. And they took her money and they told her the whole time, low amniotic fluid. What should I do, doctor? Nothing. Cesarean. And so there was no way that I could not turn the baby, because if there's water, you can turn the baby. But without water, you cannot turn the baby. But the mother was never encouraged to drink. And she was giving these vitamins that were chemical. He said, oh yeah, you want to make your baby healthy, take this vitamin. It's chemical. You know? She had kidney pain because from this bad vitamins. She was never once in 9 months of going to the doctor told anything about nutrition. She learned nothing. When she saw us, we gave her a book for mothers, Ibu Alamin, Natural Mother, about nutrition and about her human rights. She was crying. She was reading it, crying, saying, no one told me these things. So I told her, okay, for your next baby, you come to us from the beginning. Back possible vaginal birth after cesarean. You know, the new rules in Indonesia and in many countries now are that midwives are not supposed to handle vaginal birth after cesarean, and many hospitals and doctors won't do it. But in Bumi Sehat, we do it almost every week. Sometimes one, sometimes two in the week. We do it. So is it possible? Of course.
Did you ever had like any difficult situation?
One time, not
cesarean?
linked to the previous cesarean, but one time we had a mother who, not because of the mother, not because of the scar, but the baby had low heart tones, so we took her to the hospital, and she had a repeat cesarean. One time.
Did you ever
out of many, many hundreds.
Right. Did you ever had a situation where you had to say no to the mother after the cesarean section? Like, were there any indication that you would say, listen, this is too risky? And if yes, what would those indications be?
Not for a vaginal birth after cesarean mom, but for a mom who had, she had a very unusual shaped uterus, and there was no water, and the baby was breech, and the cord was very tight around the neck many times. But mainly it was there was no water. And that also she was not eating properly. There were many, many things, not drinking enough. And also we weren't sure she really was feeling like she wanted this baby. So that was but of course she did want the baby in the end after she saw her baby. But during the pregnancy there was some question about the baby. And so, and the baby, she really did not want a cesarean. She really didn't want a cesarean. In the end, it was my friend Dr. Haryasa who saved the baby by cesarean. And the mother actually, by then, she really understood and wanted it because she had been through labor at home for a long time. But this was a very difficult situation for me because I want to defend her human rights, but at some point in this case, with this very particular, unusual case, I had to also, so that it really reduces the risk, if there's any risk at all, that there might be a problem with the old cesarean scar. If you're being gentle with the mother, if you let nature take its course, if you don't give her Pitocin induction, then of course it's going to be fine. But if you start to do things and you mess with Mother Nature, You know, Mother Nature and Father Time have a plan for every mother and baby.
Right.
So you have to, sometimes in that one case, I remember that I felt that Mother Nature and Father Time had a plan for that baby had to be born by cesarean. And that was so rare. Out of more than 7,000 babies, we're going into our 8,000 baby. And in one case, I really was begging the mother for please. Example also, if the mother has low platelets, if there's something wrong with her blood work, really puts the mother at risk, then you ask for the mother to please transfer care to an OBGYN who is gentle and loving and will advocate for her if the mother needs a cesarean birth to make it a gentle, loving, conscious cesarean birth with delayed cutting of the cord. Yeah.
I wish we would have those in Russia.
We had in Bali, but now all of the OBGYNs are afraid to work with the midwives because they get in trouble from the government.
Okay, let's talk about the pain in labor, pain during the birth, and women are asking if epidural is created and if there is ways to escape from the pain. Why not to take those ways? Why not to take the medical help and have an easy ride?
Well, there are doctors here who say to the women, epidural is safe. Epidural has no effect on the baby. Epidural is just the perfect answer. Those doctors are making a lot of money from epidural. But what they don't tell the mother honestly, and they should tell the mother honestly, is epidural is a cocktail of drugs including narcotics. And this goes right in your central nervous system, in your spine. And this goes right in your blood, and it goes to the baby through the placenta. So if you're going to take an epidural, you should understand that the baby will be affected, you know. If it's late in the labor and if it's not a long epidural experience for the baby, hopefully the effect will be much less. But what happens is epidural, and then you can't move around because you're on continuous fetal heart monitoring, and sometimes there are side effects. And I know anesthesiologists who hate the epidural because these doctors of anesthesiology say that there are two people whose lives are at risk, the mother and the baby. Their lives are at risk. It's not an easy answer.
Right.
And what is the answer to pain in childbirth? Continuous care. You know, if you think that the pain is going to be a lot for you, ask for a doula. You know, get a relationship with a doula, somebody who will give you continuous care, massaging your back in childbirth. You know, just the doula rubbing your back or the midwife who's loving will actually help the husband to understand what works for you. You know, like if he sees somebody rubbing your back and it's really working, he tries to do the same. And then he starts to resonate with you and start to be able to comfort you. But we don't want to depend on your partner to do everything.
Right.
You know, that partner who's becoming a parent too is also going through a big process, an evolutionary process that can be very intense for them.
But do you believe that the pain is given by nature to a woman on purpose? That it's not just there?
Like in the biblical sense?
No, like in a sense that a woman needs to go through some kind of physical challenge to become, to become a mother, to become stronger.
I mean, there's no doubt that there's a physical challenge. And I remember 10 minutes before my first baby was born, as a teenager in labor, I said to my midwives, I can't take this. I think I will die. And they said, yes, exactly. And you die to your old life, and your new life will be born. And I thought, wow, they're cold-hearted. He etches. But then I had my next contraction, and I knew it was time to push. I knew it, and I pushed. And a few minutes later, my baby's in my arms. And you know what I said? Like, within a couple hours, I said, I could do that again. I can do it. I know I can do it. And I did it. I did it 5 times. And each time, my midwives laughed at me because I said, I can't do it, I'm dying. And they said, that's what you say every time. So when that mother gets to the end and says, I am not doing this anymore. But also, I was not a person who would look for an escape. There were no epidural 40 years ago, and I had no money to go to the hospital, so I'm not going. I didn't even have a car to take me to the hospital. You know, how can I go to the hospital? I stayed in my little funky little trailer house with my little garden, and I had my baby. You know, the pain is there, and there's a difference between pain and suffering. For me, the pain of childbirth was not suffering, because I believe that each and every contraction was for me. It was for my baby. I had a beautiful mother who, she's going viral on the internet because we made a little video of her, Ayudia. Yeah, and she said that her husband reminded her during labor, and in the beginning when she said, wow, I didn't expect it to be this painful. And he said, well, what we can do is we can thank our baby, because every contraction, the baby's also experiencing it, and every contraction means he's coming closer to look in our eyes. He wants to be with us. And she said, once she really realized that it's true, her baby was working with her because her baby wanted to look in her eyes and wanted to meet her. She said, I could do anything.
Beautiful.
And that was a first-time mom.
That's empowering.
And then her friend did the same thing when she's having her second baby, like a week and a half later. Her friend Ava, who was also teaching her prenatal yoga, and she's teaching at Bumi Sehat for many years as a volunteer. You know Ava.
Yes, I've met.
And I saw Ava looking at her belly in labor, and she's saying, Terima kasih bayi, ya pasti saya ingin mau ketemu kamu juga. Thank you, my baby. Yes, I want to get to know you too. And she said it worked for her. So that's something a mother can try. Whether you're at the home or at the hospital, you can try that. Just saying, thank you, baby, we're going on this journey together. It's quite intense for baby too. Yeah.
Thank you. Next question. If the birth doesn't start on a due date, but the woman starts to have contractions, so labor kind of begins, but it's not as strong as your doctor would want it to be, should you go for the labor augmentation to get it go stronger and faster? Should you go for speeding it up? Just because it's time for the baby to be born and labor started, but it's just going slow.
Well, remember Mother Nature and Father Time? They have their own ideas. Yeah, and the baby's involved with Mother Nature and Father Time resonating with them. So if you want to kick Father Time in the nuts and push Mother Nature out the door, yeah, you can put IVs in and you can have these horrible contractions from hell. But if you want to give it time, be patient. Remember, doctors have patience and midwives have patience. And we take our time. And again, we're supporting the mother with massage. We have so many mothers who come to us and they're having contractions, but their cervix is not dilated at all. I mean, it's way back in China. It's not anywhere even near. And so we say, well, maybe you should go home and watch a funny movie with your husband, make love. If your water hasn't released yet, if you still have intact water, go home and make love. Go for a walk, laugh, eat your favorite food, have a last date. Because believe me, mother and father, when you're pregnant, that's one thing. But once that baby is born, that couple that you were before is no more. So I say to parents, go on a last date and say goodbye to that couple. Because you can visit that couple, but that couple is going to be finished. You'll have a new family now with a baby. So it's a very tender moment, you know, to say goodbye to the couple that you were before you had children. Because mother and father with children is really different than lovers.
Right.
And such a beautiful difference. You can still visit the lovers, you know, like after the baby starts to actually sleep and you get some time in between. You can take those lovers down from the shelf, but I think before you have your baby, it's nice to say goodbye to them and say thank you for making this baby with us. Now we're going to be new people. It's a rebirth for the mother and father.
I wish every couple and every family would have someone to whisper these words into their ears.
Well, all your families have you.
in those days when they are, post due date, like I just helped the family a few days ago. They were 42 weeks plus 4 days. And yeah, they've been a bit nervous, strongly awaiting, I think. But the reward of having the baby at home and receiving in their loving hands without the pressure of the hospital and just all that medical management it's great, priceless.
Yes.
So anyway, where this idea came from that that labor must be within 24 hours, and if the woman does not progress in a certain time frame, she should be helped.
Well, there are things you can do to help her that are natural. Help her to take a nap, moxer her feet, massage her feet.
Right.
Again, I tell couples, if the water hasn't released, go make love. But the worst thing for a mother who's going past her calendar due date, remember that's only on the calendar of humans. The calendar of Divine Creator is different. So the baby has an agreement with Divine Creator to have a certain birthday. And the mother has to surrender to that, and the father has to surrender to that. And in the old days, the midwives surrendered to it. And now the medically trained midwives and doctors, they don't want to surrender. They want to make a decision. There are some certain risks after 42 weeks that we know about. And unfortunately, that makes it so that everyone has to have their babies it's like a factory.
Right.
I mean, my fourth baby, I had a really hard time because I was a lot of worry. I had a very hard time in my life. And my son Zion came 43 weeks and 4 days. So that was, my midwives were finally saying, okay, would you be willing to take, after 43 weeks and 4 days, I was quite big and I knew this is going to be my biggest baby. I said, okay, I will agree. And then they put it in orange juice and they mixed it for me. And they put it in the blender with a little ice because they said this is easier to drink. And I smelled it. And the smell of the castor oil made me vomit and vomit and vomit. And then my water released. And an hour and 20 minutes later, I had my baby.
There you go.
So I didn't drink the castor oil. I had the augmentation.
You thought about it?
The smell.
Right,
the smell. And my son Zion, he was really late. I mean, when he came out, he just was like so ugly. And then my midwife said, oh my gosh.
What an ugly baby.
I said, what? She says, well, he's kind of cute. I said, don't lie to me. I had 3 beautiful babies. This one is really ugly, and it's okay. I love you anyway. But he was born so fast, and he was my water birth. And the next day, he was beautiful. And he's really gorgeous, drop dead, good-looking guy now, though he's 29. But he was really, really after the date. But it was not his fault. He was waiting for me.
There is a midwifery care and there is a medical care when women go to the gynecologist. They have their 5-minute ultrasound, referral for the blood and urine test, and that's pretty much it. So my thing, I'm trying to reach a woman in Russia because I feel like that's my field of care, and let them know that there is difference. There is a different model. There is a different ways of taking care of yourself during the pregnancy and prepare yourself for the birth. Would you say shortly so we can record it, like what is the main differences between midwifery care and the medical model? Like what else are women are missing there that could be easily delivered to them?
Well, so for me, what I wanted as a woman, especially I was young and I was afraid the first time, I wanted my grandmother. And my grandmother was in the Philippines far away. And I knew she could be taking care of me if I was in the Philippines. So I looked for midwives because I wanted women to take care of me. I wanted mother-to-mother care, midwife to mother. This for me was the ultimate. This is what I wanted. Also, I went to the OBGYN when I was a young girl because, you're supposed to go, and I was trying to get the pill because I was going to make love with my boyfriend and I didn't want to be pregnant yet. And I was 15 years old. No, I was 16. And so I went there and he said, here is a paper clothes. Take off all your clothes, put this on, put your feet on the stirrups on the high table, lay down, and I will be back. I said, what will you do? He said, I will do an exam of your vagina. And I said, what? You're going to put your hand in my vagina? And he said, yes. I said, I don't want your hand in my vagina. I want the pill. And he said, but to get the pill, you have to put your hand in I have to put my hand in your vagina. I said, oh, is that the cost? You're going to have sex with me like that, and then you give me the pill? I still have to pay for the pill. I said, I don't think it works that way. And he said, what are you talking about? I'm not having sex with you. I said, if you put your hand in my vagina, that's sex. And if you put your hand in my vagina when I don't want it, that's rape. And I was just turned 16. And then he started yelling at me and yelling at me. He went out of the room. He came back. I still had my clothes on. He said, why are you not naked? I said, because I'm not going to have sex with you. And so then came this big, giant woman. She's a doctor. Boom, 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 boom. And she hugged me, and she picked him up, and she threw him in the hallway on the floor. And she said some really nasty words to him. And then she slammed the door, and she hugged me, and I cried. And my grandmother took care of me. And this grandmother, OBGYN, she was an angel for me. And I was so scared because I never, especially I'm half Asian, you don't question authority. I never did that before. I never said no to a doctor. I never said, what are you trying to do? I never reasoned with somebody. But I knew in that moment that that's not what I want. I don't want him to be the first person inside my vagina. That's not nice. So women can choose. And at that moment I chose only I want women to care for me in my reproductive health life. And that's how I ended up with a midwife, 2 midwives for my first birth. And I think probably if I ever were to see that horrible doctor again, I would say thank you, because you were such a bastard that I made my mind very clear what I want. I want mother-to-mother care.